Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builder Supply. This video is to bring you a closer look at the National Guard Products D648A. This is a door bottom or a door sweep. It might be an astragal. It might be weather stripping that you might use in a dock level or wherever you might need a right angle, reasonably right angle bristle weather strip. The D648 could be it. Now, this is a 6-inch sample piece. This has been sitting on my desk underneath a box for likely months, which explains the curved nature of it. This is going to ship from the factory quite straight. If I left that overnight like that, it would be just fine the next day, is the bottom line. Although, it would be fair to you as the client to include the fact that this bristle will fold over. If you have a door that's constantly closed against something, it will fold over to that sort of extent. But new out of the box, it's going to come quite straight like this, and it will stay like that as well. Okay, so it's going to be in that sort of orientation. This bristle is used in applications where you do indeed have a right angle type of application. Generally where you'll see this effectively used as a component of a greater weather stripping solution, and that's really the key. It's used as a component to a greater weather stripping solution, is attached to a flat surface so that something's making contact with it. Okay. Flat surface like an inverted bottom channel of a hollow metal door. Maybe a jamb if there's going to be an application of something sliding past it like this. Let's take some dimensional properties first. The overall width of the aluminum, about 1 1/16, and the projection of the bristle according to the manufacturer's published data. Let's take a look at that. Yeah, projection, they've got 1 inch. And that 1 inch, you know, it really is going to come down to be what the pile is itself. And that is, or the nylon brush, I should say, and that is 1 inch. The issue, though, is the overall, to me, the overall is more important because I'm obviously attaching this to something. So I'm going to be, you know, 1 inch and a quarter in that sort of range. This is just a 6-inch sample piece for purposes of this video, is really all this is. So now let's talk about where specifically these are used, at least in terms of my personal experience. If you are enjoying this video, please click thumbs up or like, and also please consider subscribing to our channel. Let's move on to the rest of the video. So where I'm going to end up seeing this piece of weather stripping really is going to be best used, I like it in the inverted bottom channel of a hollow metal door. I do, and I see them occasionally specified there. I like it there because it's concealed. I had mentioned earlier that it's probably just part of a complete solution because by the time you are stopping what you're trying to keep out, you're already under the door. So part of a solution. If it's an outswing door, this would be good to have on underneath the door. I might want to sweep on the outside with a drip cap, in fact, but part of a solution. But this is going to be also used. I've personally used these. I had a client who was it was a funeral home, and he was an undertaker, and he literally wanted a pair of new doors. They were 407s or 406/8s, and this was many years ago. He literally they were double acting, okay, cased opening frame, bomber double acting hinges, and he literally wanted designed into it the two brush that would go back and hit each other. Why he wanted that, I can't really say absolutely what the advantage of that would be, except that in a pair of double-acting hollow metal doors, you're going to have an unusually wide gap between the two doors, so that you can account for the fact that they're square-edged. They're not bull-nosed, they're not radiused. Radiused would be the proper term. So what he wanted to do by design was to close off the visual through the pair of doors. So we basically made the doors slightly smaller to account for the bristle, because the bristle, two of these pieces, would absolutely come back against each other without any trouble at all. This closed off the gap, didn't impede performance of the doors at all. They didn't come to perfect center every time, because there was some overlap here, but it wasn't really an issue. It was back of house, except that his clients could get a view when he was having a service. Part of the funeral home, there's access to it with movement, and he didn't want anyone to be able to see in his back of house operations. So that's how this was very uniquely used. I had mentioned dock levelers. There are dock levelers where you pull a chain and your dock leveler pops up and you can push it down over the tailgate of a truck. Well, there are times when those are weather stripped, and bristle like this is very common for that. Let's switch to the screen view and let's take a closer look at all of the supporting information. If you've not hit subscribe yet, we would very much appreciate if you did, and hopefully you're enjoying this video. Now, let's get back to it. Alright, here's the item that we are looking at. And National Guard Products D648A Perimeter Seal. I don't really see it used as a perimeter. If it was a angled holder, I could see it used as a perimeter seal. And I actually like them angled bristle as perimeter seal in this sort of application, and I'm going to draw it for you here. When you have your holder and then your perimeter seal comes out like this, that's nice. You do it on both sides. Seals really well. Now, ignore this rabbit and this slot that's cut here. This is also perfect if this was an overhead door as well. Angled perimeter gasketing is the standard for overhead doors. Okay, so this bristle could work well. Not a 90-degree angle. You wouldn't, there's really no way to use it here at all. So that's where I would end up using that. Let's take a look at some images that we have of this weather stripping. Just trying to hold it up so you can kind of see the end. A little close-up view of the bristle itself. It is not going to ship to you curled over like that, that's for sure. Showing you the backside. Again, won't come curled over. Then there's an image of the steel retainer. These are all long pieces that are folded over. Be mindful that when you are cutting this, do not put this in your chop saw with your 70-inch, pardon me, your 70-inch, it's a big chop saw, your 70-tooth carbide or your 60-tooth carbide blade in it. That's steel in there. Aluminum, nylon, and steel. So you'll pull it out, you'll nip it with an end cutter like they did clearly, and you slide it back in. That's how that works. Now below this video, as seen here, is a link to the manufacturer's page. When you click on that, this page will come up. You'll be able to review not only all of the National Guard products we sell by means of this horizontal navigation, but also a link to the manufacturer's website, as well as a link to the full product catalog. And I can tell you, National Guard is not your grandfather's National Guard, meaning 30 years ago they did weather stripping, and that was pretty much it. And their name was, and is, extremely synonymous with specified weather stripping. You'll see it in specifications, construction documents for projects very, very commonly. Most commonly, actually, in my experience. But when you go on products, they have most of what's here they did not have 30 years ago. The point of that is, well, obviously a lot changes in 30 years, but the point is these folks are forever evolving their product line. I visited the factory in 2022. Really great, straightforward operation. They have good people, very good lead times. Some of those items that would be new is Gap Guard. So Gap Guard is a series of products that work to help mitigate excessive gaps on fire doors. Excessive gaps on fire doors are really no longer permitted, and they have a full line of solutions that you may be able to employ to avoid the replacement of the door and frame outright. Also, what they didn't have 30 years ago were continuous hinges. They have a full line of continuous hinges, not doing anything new or unique to my knowledge, but they're in the game when it comes to that. Something they certainly didn't have 30 years ago, much less 10, were flood shields. Flood shields are things that 10 years ago we never sold, we never heard of. Now we do sell them with a certain amount of frequency. They really only have one model of flood shield, meaning there's really only one type. But what happens is the part changes only in the height. FS10, FS22, FS34. Okay? The height is all that's changing. The width you have to specify. You'll be able to do what we call an inside mount or an outside mount right out of the package, and they will do custom sizes. I've either supplied or have quoted extremely large, greater than 8-foot versions of this material. They're not inexpensive at all, but they are effective, and that's the bottom line. They don't waterproof your doors, but they're sure going to allow the cavalry to arrive before you have a catastrophic event. Here in Southwest Florida, more people should have these. I can say that. I have them here at my place of business. Other items to probably mention, a fourth, sliding door hardware is new. Nothing cutting edge there. Sports Guard, I'm not familiar with what that is. Sports Guard. Download Sports Guard catalog. They seem to be commercial thresholds. This is nothing new really here that I can think of. Let's wrap up this video on camera. If you've not hit subscribe yet, we would very much appreciate if you did, and hopefully you're enjoying this video. Now, let's get back to it. So the curled over end aside, if you'll just forgive that, you're going to want to pull that out. That's steel, that's going to be there. Okay, got aluminum, you've got nylon. Now, one thing I really want to point out about this nylon brush seal, whether it be a 90-degree holder like this, or just a 180, or some angle, there's something really, really effective about these. And you know what's interesting is the people who buy nylon brush early in my career, it was always the owners of restaurants. Now in Chicago, a lot of those guys were Greek. That's what they got into when they came to Chicago in the 1940s, 50s, 1960s, 1970s. And these were guys that would come in and know exactly what they wanted for the door sweep. And I thought to myself, he's not a hardware expert. Frankly, his command over English is certainly reasonable, but not expert. And I'm wondering how they possess this knowledge of knowing exactly they want a brush. They want a nylon brush. They knew how to say nylon brush. So one day, I finally asked. Well, it turned out I married a Greek girl. My father-in-law was in the Greek restaurant business. So one day I asked him after we had gotten married, because it popped up in my head. I said, why do you always use the nylon brush sweeps on the back of your doors? He looked at me like, what do you mean you don't know? You're an expert. He says, it keeps the light out. Okay. What he was saying, though, what he went on to tell me is, restaurants get inspected often, not infrequently. And he said, what they're looking for is daylight. Why? Why daylight? What's the problem with that? Well, if there's daylight, insects can get through. And what I've been doing all this time with my fingers, you'll notice that the bristle conforms around my fingers very, very well. A neoprene, a vinyl, a silicone. insert is not going to do what the bristle can do. It fills in the nooks and crannies. It stops the daylight, therefore the critters, the insects. That's what they're looking for. So you're able to really seal. What's nice about the bristle also is it seals, obviously, as I've been demonstrating without you perhaps realizing it. But the sill that the door's sitting over, pitted concrete. Could be anything. Years of carts and garbage and foot traffic. Well, that concrete's not super smooth. Even when it's brand new, it's not super smooth at all. The bristle gets in there and seals all of that. So that's a good use. Bristle, this is good when it gets cold, reasonably good. It will fatigue with time. It will curl with exposure to ultraviolet and extreme temperatures. Expect that you'll have to replace it. Every insert that exists has its strong suit, has its Achilles, but bristle is for when you want to close off something really well like that. And do so in such a way that doesn't really impede performance overall. You can make this touch what you're sealing against without preventing the door closer from getting the door closed and latched. Any questions on the D648 or any other National Guard product, please feel free to reach out to us. Thank you. Thank you for watching, and if you've enjoyed this video, please click thumbs up, please subscribe, and maybe even send the video to someone that you know. Thank you.